We will be hearing next from Chrystian Dennis, offering an Innovation Sandbox Pitch about how can we educate and invest in a sustainable future. And we're looking forward to hearing from you, and we can see you and hear you. So whenever you're ready to go, you're welcome to start.
Hi, everyone. Peace. Thank you for having me. Do you guys see my screen? Because I'm having technical difficulties, so
Yes,
I'm on my phone. Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Everything has completely changed minutes before, so please bear with me. My name's Chrystian Dennis, as I was just introduced. A little bit, I will go more into myself as I go along in this presentation, but right now I just want to present what Boss Week is, what I have initiated last year, and what I have learned throughout the following year since then, and what I would like to continue on with this initiative that I created. So how can we educate and invest in a sustainable future? This is the agenda I just went over, and here's last year's. Can you hear the audio of this at all?
We cannot hear the audio on that.
Okay, interesting. Okay. This is sorry. I guess we're all having difficulties with technology today.
Yeah, usually, let me see. There's under sharing, there's usually a you have to enable the sound on the sharing too, which I'm less familiar with how to do that on the phone, but I don't think I can do it from over here.
We're going to just go back to present mode, and I will just talk. So basically, this is Boss Week Mystic Seas last year, 2023 in May. I put on a 3-day event. So Boss Week stands for Building Out Sustainable Solutions Week, which basically I want to support ecological and economical solutions in textiles, art, and wellness through immersive events. So this was the first initiation of it, was a fashion exhibit with amongst 7 designers, and they weren't all technically sustainable. They were either working towards that interest in it or already in that field. And the reason why I chose that is because I believe, just as Professor DeVoy mentioned earlier about environmental racism, which is not a topic I've actually been privy to, but I was able to see that within my own experience, where people are able to have certain skill sets, but may not have access and resources that they may need to be more sustainable. So I made sure that there were different designers that were in the room to be able to speak to each other, get to know each other, and also learn from each other's habits on how they're more sustainable, which end up leading into the following year, this past year, a lot of brands looking into other ways to use natural dyes, how to upcycle other products, and just be more sustainable in their everyday life. So that was honestly, for me, the biggest blessing or thankfulness I could receive from putting on this event. After the fashion show, we had a vendor market where I invited people in the local Boston community from different businesses and backgrounds that are sustainable to share their products or their services with the community. And the last event was a panel discussion basically around not just sustainable textiles, but also technology and products that other people may use. So we allowed the public to be able to ask the questions that they needed to ask. And this was also I made sure these places were in areas where everybody was able to access, such as public transportation, parking, and you name it, because I think there's construction. That's extremely important when it comes to access and resources, that everybody is able to receive this information, and it's not just about who knows and how you're able to get there. So I recently went on a roots trip in Cape Verde, and that was last month. I spent 40 days there, just exploring my culture, my traditions, and just honestly where I got a lot of my principles and values from. I'm 4 generations American, and Cape Verdean is on my paternal side. So I was able to go to Cape Verde and really tie into how I was brought up and raised. So I thrifted most of my life with what I call my diva aunts and my grandmother. This is something that is almost like a tradition, so to speak. We go there, we have fun, and we play dress up and have fashion shows. So this is something that's already been in my world for a long time and something I'm accustomed to. I'm not really on the materialistic side of where I need to have a certain label, a certain brand per se. I just care what feels good and what looks good on my body. Um, I was raised to also turn off water faucets when you're brushing your teeth, or maybe even feeding the birds outside of our scraps and our meals. So all of these things that were just innate within me because of my family structure, it was allowing me to understand that I had a connection with nature more than I understood. And obviously being, born American, I feel we're a little bit more disconnected to nature than we would like. It's just based on like how our technology has been, our infrastructure, and just where our marketing and advertisement has led us. So I feel when people are able to travel or have still those connections to their roots, culturally, we're able to see our environment a lot differently. So a little backstory about me, by education, I'm a mechanical engineer. By trade, I am a model. And by purpose, I am Earth Steward. So I initiated a project called Mother Love Tour, where the day before Mother's Day, I went out during COVID, was my 30th birthday, actually. I went out and just started cleaning up and around my neighborhood, which ended up inciting others to do the same, or just, I guess they thought I was a little weird at first, and then they realized I was just doing that in my own time, in my own day, and decided to help me, or even like ask me to come close into their yard or places that just had, rubbish that flown over. So this is something that I repeated over the years. And as you know, we've seen COVID and what that can do with Mother Nature, is that when we're able to pause and sit and just reflect, nature will do its job, and she will come back more bountiful and abundant, and basically remove and purge all the toxins that us humans and, just natural order takes place. So while I was in Cape Verde, I was able to observe just how sustainable the culture is. And I really appreciate the previous presenters, because I think what we get to see is that there's a common understanding when it comes to sustainability and waste, and that it's more of a, waste is like a luxury, in my opinion. And it does go back into environmental racism, because if we think about advertisement and just marketing, we're able to see where exactly those things come from. So in other countries, your attire, your work ethic, and the ways that you see certain things in life are really depicted based on the marketing that you've been indulging in. So in Cape Verde, I was taking my first everyday cold showers from a bucket. Water is minimal in this area, especially rainfall. So I had a greater appreciation for washing my hands and, cleaning myself for the day and brushing my teeth. It just put you in a state of perspective of realizing just how privileged I am personally. I can speak for myself, how I'm personally privileged to come from a space where water is not something I have to question, or a certain amount of attire is not something that I have to question. And then when I look around in my community, or in my culture's island, I see, mounds of clothes, and all of these clothes, like someone mentioned about H&M and all these brands, they're everywhere. And that's really where a lot of the source of income comes from in these areas, because that's what people want. And it's a more of a indulgence than it is really a need. And also with the lack of water, I realized that agriculture has become something that's more of like, I don't know the word to say, but I think through history and how things have come through, like slavery and producing of things of to attain by control and power, we've lost sight on the importance of being a steward to nature and being able to plant and grow. We talk about all of these big languages about, greenhouse gases and carbon, heating our earth, but there's so many more solutions we can do instead of like having the conversations and, sitting in these rooms, which I'm grateful for and appreciate. But the work that gets done is really just putting our foot to the pavement and really getting into the dirt and putting our hands in there and building and creating and growing these things that will allow us to lessen our impact. And honestly, a lot of it has to go in with our needs. And I may feel like I'm talking all over the place, so I don't know if a time check, but basically what I'm trying to say is that with Boss Week, I want to be more actionable. I want to be in spaces where I'm actually taking the time, which is an investment, which is what we do in general. How we can change our world, which is basically giving and offering our time. It's not really a money thing. It's not a technology thing. A lot of it just goes back to sticking your hand in some soil, composting your food, reducing your waste, and sharing your resources. It's really that simple. And I feel like those considered global South, I would say first world countries, indigenous tribes and communities are really the ones that are still close to nature and still have an understanding of what is needed and what's necessary, because they are only able to use what they are given. And I do believe, regardless of religious background or spiritual beliefs, Mother Nature is abundant. So whatever we have here is what is given and necessary, and we'll always keep providing so long as we have the compassion and care to maintain and sustain this environment. So I'm going to stop here because this was not a part of the plan, but I'm just grateful to be able to share this information. And I just ask that I just would like to say there are three types of people in this world. There are people who do what they want. There are people who do what they're asked, and there are people who do what must be done. I personally choose to take each moment out of my day to be one of the people that do what must be done, and that is planting, that is reusing materials, that is upcycling things that I may have access to, sharing my knowledge, and also just offering my time to places that need this type of influence, this type of knowledge, and being able to shift our perspectives from being in a space of like we're separate and we're global North and global South, but instead we are just entirely a group of people that are all interconnected, and that we can solve this problem just simply by action. So thank you. I appreciate everything, and I look forward to the questions and answers. Peace.
Thank you so much for that, Chrystian. It was there was so much, so many different points and jumping off points to that hopefully sparked things for our audience, and there was a lot of wisdom on a lot of different topics in there. So thank you so much for sharing. We have someone with their hand raised, so I'm going to allow enable audio, and feel free to share your comments. It looks like Christian Miranda.
Yeah, I wanted to know, from your perspective, from your immediate society, family or otherwise, what do you think is the easiest way an individual can invest in sustainable living?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. The easiest and simplest way is action. Personally, the way that I'm able to do things, I'm not fully sustainable. I can't say I live in a wooden home that's built on efficient energy, but my actions are simply using less water, reusing materials that I have, planting in nature, creating more plants that are able to cycle this carbon. I would also say sharing your resources that you currently have. Sometimes things are a piece of trash to you, but they may be a treasure to someone else. And I think that's where we become super desirable in terms of the things we have access to, and we constantly are in a state of like want and hoarding. So I feel like there's a lot of need for us to just take a step back and just realize like what are our basic human necessities, and that's food, shelter, clothing, and transportation. And I think if we go back to the root of what we can do with the things we already have in place, instead of keep compounding new inventions and new materials, how about we start with the clothes we currently have, separating from synthetic and natural fibers, maybe halting all production of clothing until we're just no longer having clothing deserts. I think there's just so many more simpler ways to take action outside of funding and technology that we can really just make an effort and difference in our nature. I appreciate that question.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer.
All right, we received a few questions in the chat. So one question is, how can design research and design thinking students and I'll throw in, because you mentioned your engineering background. I think engineers more general do to support this work.
So that's a very broad question, but I feel technology, the word itself, is the study of art, and art is the historian of life and experiences. So those who are in creative design and engineering, I think, play a major role in how do we efficiently. I think every engineer and design thinking person thinks efficiently. They want to maximize the time, maximize the product and resource, and make sure that it's used to its full capacity. So I feel if we are able to utilize those who are in those fields, we need to be creating the products and the manufacturing systems that will take care of the things that we are already producing, and focus more on like what we currently have and how can we better suit those things. So if we have the textiles that are polluting our environment, what systems can be put in place where they're no longer textile deserts, or dyes are not being put in our ocean, and how can we go back to collaborating, like the previous presenter, with local communities who use natural dyes, who use natural fibers, and build that partnership between these big name brands. I think, to name drop Nike and Reebok and Adidas and all these people who are loved across the world, whether they are given from family members from global north spaces. Why aren't these companies already on the floor in these countries, making partnerships, creating jobs and economic opportunity for these countries where they're already producing natural fibers and natural textiles? I think there's a huge need for creative design thinking and engineers to create those gaps and bridge those gaps together.
Thank you. We received another question, but I just want to check if anyone else wants to offer any comments. Feel free to raise your hand and I will enable your audio. But the other question we have here is a little bit like the question that you answered, I think, 2 questions ago, is, but what is the kind of best thing I can do today to help build and create a less environmentally racist world?
Okay, let's think of just geography. I'm an inner city child. I've born and raised in Boston. I spent some time in Milton, so I've able to see the difference of suburb and urban area. And if you are in the suburb area, you would already know that there's not many places you're gonna find a bunch of garbage just lying around. You're not gonna find trash just not picked up after the trash guy has come and picked up your stuff. So I think there's a lot of certain principles and feeling of belonging that needs to be instilled on both sides to show that it's not really exactly where you're located, it's the resources that are available to you. So for instance, in Milton, you pay for your trash, which will inadvertently encourage you to recycle more so that you have less garbage to put a sticker on. I'm not saying that's the complete answer, especially when we have financial disparity amongst urban and suburban spaces, but finding initiatives and effective ways that we can basically help each other in terms of not making a higher financial burden for those who may not have that access. So if you are in those suburb areas and you have access to that, are you making sure that you're composting? Are you making sure that you are limiting the amount of trash that you're putting in? We send a lot of trash that can be used in other ways just by simply not separating it. So I feel if we take that time and educate, we're able to preserve a lot more. I may have gone all over the place, but yeah, I feel like those 2 things are important. If you come from different areas, you're able to see on belonging is an issue. So if we build community and education around these topics, I think a lot more can be done with each other instead of talking.